If you're the sort of person that enjoys covert operations with a sprinkling of mortal peril, then it's likely that you've dipped your toe into the stealth horror waters. When you ask people to name a terrifying title where hiding from your foes is your best decision, it's likely they'll say Outlast. Though it is a great example of a stealth horror title, it does seem like Outlast gets the lion's share of the attention when anyone talks about the genre. Well, enough, says I, because there's a whole load of brilliant stealth horror games out there that are worth all of the nightmares they induce. We should probably take this opportunity to define what we mean by stealth horror. In short, we're talking about any spooky title where sneaking about in order to avoid your enemies is the aim of the game. Some of these titles may have combat mechanics, but even if they do, players will only want to use them as a last resort. Everybody clear on that? Wonderful! I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 great stealth horror games that aren't Outlast. Number 10. In Silence. When A Quiet Place burst onto cinema screens in 2018, it turned the everyday banality of just making sounds into something quite horrific. Do you think you could survive in a world ravaged by vicious creatures with ultra-keen hearing? Well, thanks to Ravenhood Games' In Silence, you can find out. In Silence is a multiplayer game in which one player takes on the role of the monster and the remaining players are the survivors. The monster, Rake, is blind, but is able to sense its victims thanks to its hypersensitive hearing. If the survivors don't make any noise, Rake isn't going to know where they are, but fortune favors the bold, and you'll only be able to escape its clutches by taking some risks. In order to win, the survivors must either get the car working and escape, or open the armory and hunt down the beast. Either way, they'll need to tread very lightly, making noise only when absolutely necessary. In-game voice chat allows players in close proximity to one another to plot against the creature, but take care, as it can hear you too. One misstep can mean the difference between flawlessly executing your plans and certain death, so best make sure your phone's on silent. Oh, bugger, that's me. Sorry, everyone. Number 9. Hello, Neighbor. Have you ever had a neighbor that feels a little off? Maybe like they're hiding a secret that you could uncover if you could just have a bit of a snoop around their house. Then you'll know just how it feels to be Nicky Roth, protagonist of Hello Neighbor. Whilst playing one day, Nicky hears screams coming from the house of his neighbor, Mr. Peterson. Upon investigating, he sees the man locking someone in the basement and, overcome by curiosity, feels the need to enter Mr. Peterson's house in order to find out exactly what's going on. In order to access the basement, players will need to solve a series of puzzles, all whilst avoiding the neighbor. If he catches the player, he'll send them straight back home and will also be more vigilant the next time they attempt to break in, becoming more aware of the movements they're taking and setting up traps in an attempt to thwart the player's schemes. Hello Neighbor didn't exactly fare well with critics upon its release, and admittedly it still suffers from the odd bug here and there, but if you can look past that, there's a decently tense and at times downright frightening experience to be had. Number 8. Gravewood High. For some, high school is one of the best times of their lives, whereas for others, it's a hellhole from which they can't wait to escape. If you're a student at Gravewood High, though, simply making it out alive is probably the best you can hope for. Gravewood High sees players trapped inside a school. A number of students have gone missing, though no one seems to be doing anything about it, and it's your job to uncover what's happened and get the heck out of Dodge. Of course, you're not alone in there, and you'll have to constantly watch your back in order to avoid the evil teacher. Hide in lockers, destroy his stuff, or lure him into traps. The important thing is that you don't let him catch you. If you do happen to get caught, the layout of the school changes, meaning that retracing your steps is almost impossible. In terms of gameplay, players can expect lots of sneaking about, puzzles, and roguelike elements, meaning that no two playthroughs are ever the same. At the time of writing, Gravewood High is in early access, but a full release is planned for both PC and consoles sometime in 2022. Number 7. At Dead of Night. Although it was reasonably big a few decades ago, FMV has fallen out of favor somewhat in recent years. It's understandable. Advancements in technology have meant that realistic graphics aren't all that hard to achieve anymore. If used cleverly though, as is the case with At Dead of Night, FMV can help to bring a whole new layer of terror to players' gaming experience. At Dead of Night badges itself as part horror film, part video game, and sees players taking on the role of Maya, a student trapped inside a remote hotel and stalked by its psychopathic owner, Jimmy. Using a special communication device, Maya must speak to the ghosts that inhabit the hotel and unravel their stories, all whilst trying to find her missing friends. Players have no means of fighting back against Jimmy, and so will need to carefully carefully avoid him if they've any hopes of getting themselves and their friends out alive. Maya can take cover in one of the hotel's many rooms, or she can trick Jimmy into going the wrong way, but one thing's for sure, if he catches her, it's game over. The tense atmosphere of the game, coupled with the seamless blend of FMV and computer graphics, makes for a horrifically scary experience. You'll never look at a Travelodge in quite the same way again. Number 6. Poppy Playtime. There's something a little unnerving about dolls, isn't there? The way their eyes follow you around the room, their soulless smiles, how they whisper in your ear at night that they're going to kill you. Actually, that might just be the one doll I found in the attic of that house where an entire family died under mysterious circumstances. Anyway, I digress. Released in 2021, the first chapter of Poppy Playtime takes all of the things that are somewhat distressing about kids' toys and ramps them up a millionfold. Players jump into the shoes of a former employee of toy manufacturer Playtime Co. and head into the company's abandoned factory after receiving a videotape that encourages them to find the flower. Armed with the grab pack, a pair of extendable arms that can grab objects from a distance, open some doors and conduct electricity, the player must head deep into the factory to uncover the truth behind the missing workers. The game's first chapter is admittedly quite short, with most players taking just 30 minutes to complete it, but what it lacks in length it more than makes up for in spooks, and with another chapter set to be released in 2022, the nightmare isn't over just yet. Number 5. Dead by Daylight. If you've ever watched a slasher film and thought that you're far too clever to get violently offed by a supernatural serial killer, then you should try your hand at Dead by Daylight, a game that proves that no matter how smart you are, you'll probably still get murdered by Michael Myers, not that one. Dead by Daylight's gameplay is relatively straightforward. 4 players make up a group of survivors and it's up to them to sneak around an enclosed arena and fix the generators that will power the exit. They're not alone in there though, as the 5th player takes on the role of the killer, and it's their job to off as many of the survivors as they can before they've got the chance to escape. If you're playing as a survivor, you'll need to cooperate with your teammates, being careful to remain concealed from the killer as much as possible by hiding or distracting them whilst your comrades try to get those generators working. Opt to play as the killer though, and you'll need to make sure you're stalking those survivors' every move so that you can spring up at the opportune moment. With a whole bunch of different killers to choose from, including the likes of Ghostface, the Demogorgon, and Saw's Amanda Young, committing serial murder has never been quite so fun. Number 4. A Plague Tale: Innocence. Having recently lived through a plague, you might be reticent to play a video game in which widespread disease is the order of the day, but I'd like to assure you that despite its slightly close-to-home subject matter, A Plague Tale: Innocence is very much worth your time. Set in 14th century France, A Plague Tale: Innocence tells the story of Amicia and her little brother Hugo as they flee from their home in order to escape the French Inquisition, which they certainly were not expecting. Throughout the game, Amicia and Hugo must avoid the hostile Inquisition, as well as the scores of rats that are looking to eat them alive. Amicia is armed with nothing but a slingshot, which won't do much against an armoured guard, so the vast majority of the time she must use stealth in order to bypass any enemies. She can also solve a series of puzzles, which will either allow her and her brother to access new areas, or will direct rats to attack their human foes, giving the pair a chance to escape. The game is massively tense and atmospheric and will keep players on the edge of their seats from the second they load the game. Number 3. SOMA. By the time SOMA was released in 2015, Frictional Games had already made a name for themselves in the horror space, having terrified the world with both the Penumbra and Amnesia series. We'd experienced the terror of being isolated in the snow and a mysterious European castle, so for SOMA, the team decided to take the spookums below sea level. It is the year 2015, and protagonist Simon Jarrett has survived a car crash, though he's been left with devastating brain injuries. After agreeing to undergo an experimental procedure, Simon awakens in the year 2104 with no idea how he came to lose such a large chunk of time. We've all been there after a few drinks, bud. By solving puzzles and unearthing notes and audio logs, Simon must work out what's happened to him. Of course, he's got a few friends down there to help keep him company and take his mind off things, and by friends, I naturally mean horrifying enemies. Being a bit of a fish out of water, no pun intended, Simon isn't really equipped to deal with the horrors that lie at the bottom of the ocean, and so he must use stealth in order to avoid them. Not gonna lie, if I was faced with a bunch of monsties and the prospect of being one of the last people on the planet, I'd probably just hide in the corner as well. Or die. That sounds easier. Number 2. Little Nightmares. When you're a small child, the world can seem like a big, scary place. Hell, I'm a proper grown-up and it still seems big and scary to me. If you're after a game that explores such feelings of being small and powerless in an uncaring, terrifying place, then you should check out 2017's Little Nightmares. The game stars Six, a little girl trapped in a mysterious place called The Moor. Her main goal is to escape, though being so small makes things very difficult. In order to make her way out of the moor, she must platform, solve puzzles, and most importantly, evade any enemies that come her way. For much of the game, Six has no weapons, and though she's occasionally given tools that will help her to defeat her foes, most of the time players will need to use the environment to ensure that she stays out of sight and out of harm's way. Little Nightmares is a darkly beautiful title, and its horror elements are brought to life by its gorgeous artwork and chilling sound design, both of which saw the game nominated for several awards. Although players may spend the entire runtime fearing for their lives, they'll also be treated to a feast for the eyes and ears. Number 1. Alien Isolation. There can't be many things that are worse than being trapped on a spacecraft with a hostile alien, and if there's something that's worse, then I don't care to hear about it. If being stuck on a spacecraft with a hostile alien sounds like your cup of tea though, then you might have a nice time playing 2014's Alien Isolation. Oh, who am I joking? You're not going to have a nice time, but you're certainly going to have a pant-wettingly fun one. Unlike Alien's Colonial Marines, Alien Isolation was designed to be more like the original Alien movie, eschewing action in favor of an atmospheric, stealth-based approach. The game is set 15 years after Alien and follows Amanda Ripley as she explores a space station in the hopes of finding her mother, Ellen. Although players have access to weapons, ammo is limited, so avoiding the alien and the other enemies aboard the craft is the way to go. The alien can be distracted by sounds or scared away by fire, but it can't be destroyed. If you're of a nervous disposition, then Alien Isolation certainly isn't going to be the game for you, but if you're looking for a fantastic stealth horror title with a sci-fi twist, you really can't do any better.